I love how powerful food can be in healing the body and supporting the bones.
Yeah, that's important because we can. It's important to eat your vitamins and nutrients and then fill in the gaps with supplements,
As
which we do need to do.
we do to fill in the gaps, absolutely.
My next guest is Robin Allen. She is a wife, mother, nutritionist, entrepreneur, and the founder of Necessary Nutrition Incorporated and the creator of Necessary Nutrition brand of vitamin D3. She has inspired thousands of people to use food and nutrition to build and repair their bodies and continues to connect others to resources and tools to live a peaceful, health filled life. She has been featured on CNN headline news and countless other media outlets, sharing her insights on food, nutrition, and life. She received her bachelor's degree from the University of Las Vegas and her master's from the University of Redlands, and an additional nutrition certification from the Global College of Natural Medicine. Welcome, Robin. I'm looking so forward to having you speak to us today, and I can't wait to hear this valuable information you have to
Thank
share with
you.
my audience.
I'm very happy to be here. You and I talked a little bit before this about all the fun things that are happening in life, and so I'm happy to be here and live with you all, and just willing and grateful to share what I've learned along the way and support your audience. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. All right, well, let's begin with what are the 9 nutrients in foods that
Yes,
support bone health, since my population is ladies mostly that
yes.
are concerned with bone health.
Yes, let's talk about that. And so is my population. That as we get older and better, we want to support our bones. So let's jump into the 9 nutrients. I'm going to tell you what the nutrients are and the foods that go along with it. So first is calcium, which you hear about all the time as it relates to bones. And you can get your calcium. I'm going to give you a list. You can get your calcium from your green leafies. You can get calcium from tofu if that's your desire. You can get it from plant-based milks. There's a lot of sources. So I'm just going to give you general. So that's calcium. Then we're going to talk about later more about vitamin D, but that's one of the nutrients that support your bone health and that you get from the sun. There's also egg yolks, mushrooms, fatty fish that contain vitamin D. And then number 3 is magnesium, almonds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. And sometimes I get off with my numbers. So if I mess up a number, let me know. Also brown rice, quinoa, and a theme you're going to hear about the vegetables, right? So if you're getting at a lot of produce, then you're going to touch a lot of these nutrients for your bones. Then vitamin K, is that number 4? We
Yeah,
said
number
calcium,
4.
D, magnesium, K. K is in green leafies again. And K, we'll talk more about that and how important that is for bone health. Phosphorus, that is in your poultry, your fish, your nuts, your legumes. Vitamin C, grapefruit, citrus fruits, so your oranges, strawberries, bell peppers. Zinc, nuts and seeds. Copper, and copper can be found in nuts and seeds as well. Vitamin B12, and that is in eggs and fish, dairy, meat. And then number 9, right? On number 9, vitamin A, and that is in your carrots and your peppers and also in your green leafies. I'm going to repeat the list just of the nutrients. I said calcium, your D, magnesium, K, phosphorus, vitamin C, zinc, copper, B12, and I also said vitamin A. What I always want to impress upon anyone that I'm speaking with is what you heard me list were food sources. Not, I didn't go to supplements as the first line of defense. I went to food sources. And I love how powerful food can be in healing the body and supporting the bones.
Yeah, that's important because we can. It's important to eat your vitamins and nutrients and then fill in the gaps with supplements,
As
which we do need to do.
We do to fill in the gaps. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
And all the
great.
things I mentioned could make a really good salad, really good salad, really good meal with the items that I mentioned. So,
Yeah, I love too how a lot of them are vegetable based. So there are a lot of vegetables. And I
yes.
like to say anything that's the closest to source possible.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
those are all things that grow and then you prepare them. And the
They
farther away
do.
from source something is, the worse, or the
Yeah,
more things that can happen in your body. Okay, so I think that vitamin D, you definitely have a perspective of vitamin D being a very important
I
vitamin for
do.
bones. And so I'd love for you to talk about vitamin D and why is that so important for our bone health and our overall health.
Your overall health. So vitamin D helps your body absorb calcium. Like it helps us absorb calcium. So the calcium that's in your blood that you consume with food is in your body and it needs to go to the bones and strengthen you that way. So that's what vitamin D, when we talk about us as women in our midlife and beyond, that's where vitamin D supports your bones. But vitamin D also supports so many other parts of our bodies. So 400 of our cells have vitamin D receptors in there. And vitamin D is helpful for our immune system, our gut, our mood, blood sugar balance, so many things. And I want to say, Debbie, why vitamin D is a topic that I'm passionate about. I didn't mean to be passionate about vitamin D per se, but what happened, I am a nutritionist. And for many, many years, I worked with clients and found that vitamin D is an easy deficiency to have, but it's also an easy deficiency not to have. And there's been so many cases where we go to the doctors as women with a list of things that are challenging us, and we may be medicated and treated for a situation that could have been rectified by vitamin D. And I like to say, start there first because it's cost effective and it's easy. And then if you feel better, then you can start to go through the list of other potentials. And for us as perimenopause and menopause, we have a list of things that are going on in our bodies. But that vitamin D is so critical to human health. So critical to human health. Yeah,
Yes, it
yeah,
is. And
it
especially
is.
with bone health, with immune health,
With it
and it, and
all.
and you know, when women get a diagnosis of osteoporosis, what I'm noticing with the physicians these days is often they're recommending medication, which many women don't want to take. What they are
Right.
recommending though is vitamin D and calcium. So the two vitamins I see being recommended are those. So
Mm-hmm.
what foods are there that contain vitamin D? What can we let's start with the food part. You mentioned a couple of things, but a little bit more
Mm,
about the food because when I do this my research to put together lists of foods that contain nutrients that are important for bone health or for healthy
mm,
aging, I think vitamin D is a harder one to look for. So give us a
yes.
little list of vitamin D and foods that contain vitamin D.
Yeah. So first, let me tell you where the primary source of vitamin D is. There's foods that are contain vitamin D and are fortified with vitamin D, but not the true source. So the true source of vitamin D is from the sun. And when we're in the sun, then the sun hits our skin and it helps our skin then activate and produce the vitamin D in our body. So we're able to produce it from the sun. So that's where it is and it's most powerful there. Food wise, you can get it out of your egg yolk, mushrooms, you can get it out of fatty fish. And did I say egg yolk? Did I say egg
Yeah,
yolk?
egg yolk,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
And then there's some juices and some other products that are fortified with vitamin D. So I always want to say those fortified with vitamin D, it's added, but it's not in its natural state. So the best place to get it is truly in the sun. And but the food sources are as follows. Hmm.
Yeah, my I went to my dermatologist yesterday and I've had skin cancer 3 times and I asked him every time about this. So yes, the exposure from the sun is the best place for vitamin
Uh,
D. And I asked him, okay, what can I do safely as a person with with skin
And
cancer, what's safe for me? He said you should be safe with 15 minutes on the front, 15 minutes on the back, unprotected, in
right,
order to get that synthesis going. And so I do
correct.
that. I try. And then, of course, the summer months are the best to
Yeah.
actually create that. And then your body stores it for the winter. So, okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about vitamin K and
Yes.
vitamin K's role.
And I want to comment, if I may, on what you just said, just so that those that are listening, that in the summer months, vitamin D is more available. And then in the fall and the winters, and it's not as available. And it really depends on where you live. In California or in Florida, more sunshine. But if you're in Boston or different latitudes, it makes it even more difficult for you to get it. And that's where, if people don't supplement generally, that in those months where the sun is not as available, that's when they can consider supplementing. Now, vitamin K, which comes out of Greek leafy greens, helps to take the calcium. And I want you all to, when you're listening, please research what I say. You don't know me. And it's so many people giving different opinions about things. So I always say, research it for yourself because you don't know me. So do your own due diligence. But vitamin K takes the calcium that is in your blood and helps direct it into your bones. So D and K work synergistically together to get to strengthen those bones. So without the K, then the calcium in your body can go to other places, your heart, places you don't want. So sometimes there's sort of calcification of your arteries. Look that up for the listeners and see whether uh, you are at risk for that. So the only reason you would not take vitamin K, there are certain medications that conflict. So blood thinners with the Coumadin and warfarin, if you're taking a blood thinner, that's why you want to ask your doctor, depending on what's going on, if taking vitamin K is okay for you based on a medication that you may be taking. Because if you take that K, it can make that medication less effective. But otherwise, if you're not on a certain medication, then that D3K2 combination is very, very powerful for the bones, for our
Right.
bones.
Yeah, the pharmacist that I interviewed, she explained it that the vitamin K takes the vitamin D by the hand and delivers it to the cell.
Yes, and says, come on, friend,
Yeah, come on,
let's
get
go.
here. And
Yeah,
99% of our calcium is stored in our bones.
yeah.
There was a study that came out, it's called cross-linking, actually getting the calcium into the bones. And there was a study, I believe in early 2021,
Hmm.
that came out with the showing the cross-linking aspect of vitamin K with calcium. So that yes,
Hmm.
you're right. There's new research, and especially in these last few years, much more research on the importance of vitamin K when it comes to getting calcium to the
To
bones.
the bones. And I think that, as you said, it's becoming more and more known than it was before. Yeah. So I
Known,
always,
understood, researched. Yeah,
mhm, yeah,
as we learn.
as we learn, because I know a lot of people that are just taking vitamin D by itself, women, and as best that I can, I want to educate them on that K, because again, we want our bones to be strong and useful and helpful as we age. And if we don't know what we don't know, then we may be doing sometimes not as much good as we think just by taking vitamin D by itself. Hmm.
Robin, is there a timing for supplements that you know of? Like, does it matter in terms of timing of taking things with each other or not with each other? Do we know enough? Is there enough research to prove that timing of supplements matters?
You know, I would say this. There's a lot to be said about that, but some people are best taking their supplements in the morning because certain supplements give them more energy. Certain supplements are better at night, like magnesium. Sometimes that's better at night to help you rest. So it depends on what the supplement is, depending on the timing. And then some supplements need food, some don't. Vitamin D in particular, it's fat soluble. And depending on if you're taking the D, so I'll say this, if like let's say the D3K2, if it doesn't have a fat source with it, then it needs to be taken with food that has fat. So generally, let's say vitamin D, if you see the little gel caps, it's usually with a carrier oil, olive oil, sometimes sunflower oil, it depends. That one you do not need to take with food because it has a fat source. If you're doing the D3K2 and it's in powder and it doesn't have a fat source, then you need it with food. So I'm repeating, is there a timing? It depends on what it is. And then also, if you person were taking a medication, then there's that timing where you have to wait a while before you can take anything based on the medication that you had. So it's almost an individual situation, depending. I love that question because it really is. So many things are not a one size fits all. It is sometimes it's again based on what their lifestyle is, what they're wanting to achieve. And then sometimes it really totally is if they can remember, right? Some people are just like, I can just remember my supplements in the morning. So I hope
Right.
that answers that.
Do you know anything about interaction with thyroid meds? I work with a lot of ladies that are on thyroid meds and they take them in the morning. Is there any
Yeah, they have to wait.
interaction? They do have to wait. Okay.
They need to wait an hour. My mother has had thyroid cancer, so she has to wait. She has to take her medication, and then she has to wait before she eats. So, and even like with some certain fruits and things, she has to wait. So the bottom line is take this thyroid medication and wait the time period before you take anything else to be safe, to be clear, to make sure that it is effective, doing what it needs to do before you add anything else to the body.
Okay. All right. So vitamin D we comes in a few forms and we see vitamin D2 and vitamin
Yes.
D3. So could you
Mhm.
explain the difference between these two for us, please?
So one of them is a plant source and one of them is sourced from animal. So let's say D2, D2 being the plant source. So if someone is vegan or vegetarian and they don't want to have anything animal related, then they may choose to go with D2. But D3 is more effective in keeping your levels adequate. So you may take D2 and it doesn't hold the level as efficiently. With D3, usually it is sourced from lanolin, which is the found in the wool of sheep, and it can be made in such a way that it's ethical, right? So that this may be more than what you asked me, but different brands do different things and treat the animals differently. Some people care, some people don't. But if you want lanolin from sheep that are not harmed. If a person cares about that, then that's something to look into depending on the supplement. But the bottom line is the difference between them, plant and animal source, D3 is better at
It's so
keeping the
weird. I
level.
wonder how they figure this out. So it's like probably the sheep fur captures the sunlight and
Yes.
synthesizes the vitamin
Yep.
D in the way that our skin would. How did they
Yep.
ever figure that out? That's one thing that's just
It's a good
intriguing to me.
question.
I always
Yeah.
ask, I always wonder, do you by
Yeah.
any chance know? So I don't know, I didn't study chemistry, but the molecular makeup
It's
of
different.
well, so there's D2 and D3. I know with
Mm-hmm.
thyroid, when I work with thyroid, so thyroid has a T4 and a T3. And I
Three. Yeah.
recently learned that what the 4 and the 3 are iodine molecules. So
Mm-hmm.
thyroid T4 has 4 iodine molecules. And then once it's converted to T3, it loses an iodine molecule. So
It
do you
do.
know if the D2 and the D3, if those are molecules?
So they do have a different molecular structure. I do know
Okay.
that. They do. That's a good question.
Okay.
And when you my daughter is a little chemist. She's actually in college right now working on her degree in chemistry. And so whenever I'm fuzzy about something, I'm just like, hey, my little chemist, come here. But yes, they have a different molecular structure that makes them different. And when a person, generally, if you go to the store, you're going to see D3 more prevalent on the shelf. But there's times where a doctor may prescribe as a pharmaceutical D2. So just be conscious of that, of which one you're getting. But overall, D3 is more effective. So especially if you have low vitamin D, to get it back up quickly, it's the D3 that you want to go with.
And then are you able to say anything in terms of the dosing? Because not, of course, you can't suggest or recommend to every single person. It's not a one size
Right.
fits all model. But I find women sometimes on 10,000 IUs, 50,000 IUs.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, people seem to be taking 1,000 IUs, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
two. I've recently been
Sometimes
seeing women
5.
with five. So, is there a baseline or an RDA?
Hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about that. So the answer to that question is how much vitamin D should someone take? And the answer is you should take enough vitamin D so that your levels are in a range that is most supportive for your body. And I'm going to talk about what that is. So you want to be maximally supported, right? And so yes, there's 1,000 I use, 2,000, 5,000, all of these different things. So thank you so much for that question, because the first thing for someone to do, number one, is to know where they are with their vitamin D. Like, where does your level hit? So 30 is considered okay. So if a person's vitamin D levels is less than 30, then they are deficient. So you do not have enough, right? I'm gonna come back to how much to take. So if a person's vitamin D level is at 30, think of it that like as minimum wage. You're not deficient, but you're not maximally supported. So you can live your life maybe on minimum wage, but are you living your best life if you're making minimum wage? Not so much, but you can make it. So if you have a vitamin D level of 30, you're not deficient. But the higher your vitamin D levels get in that range between 60 and 80, your body is maximally supported. Your bones, your gut, your immune system. So then it says, or I say, if you want to get in that 60 to 80, and then the question is, well, can I take too much and get toxic? So I want to come back to that. But if you're looking at that 60 and 80 range, then the question is, how much do you, person, need in order to get your vitamin D levels up to that? So if a person is deficient, let's say they're at a 19, the doctors may give them 50,000, maybe a high mega dose to get their levels up quickly. And then once their levels are up, then they may taper them off to a 5,000. It really depends on so many factors: the color of someone's skin, their age, if they have an autoimmune disorder, they have gut challenges, kidney issues, because that matters as far as absorption, right? So I personally take 5,000 IUs every day. My levels were in the 40s. Now they're in 65. And I take 5,000 every day because I know that when I meet someone and they have no idea where they are, then I generally say, start off with the 2,500 or 2,000 until you know where you are. And then if you know that you're good, you're in the range, then you maintain. And then we're looking at your lifestyle. Are you in the sun? What are you doing? But if you know that you're not where you want to be, or you want to be at a level that is maximally supported your body, then you're going to increase. Right now, we know. So I always say, if you go to Dr. Google, there's outdated information about taking 4,000 IUs. That's outdated information. And for us as women, with needing our bone support, going through menopause, going through all the things, You want to be maximally supported. So what does that mean for you, person listening? I don't know because only you will know what that level is. I and then it goes by weight. So if you are way more, then you may have to take more so that it can absorb and do what it needs to do. And there are people that take higher dosages, and again, their digestive system isn't functioning, and they don't, or they have some challenges with their liver or kidney. They have to take more in order to maintain their levels. So this, what's safe to take, if you again, if you know not where you are, then I say start off with 2,500. I use 2,000, 2,500, and then go get it checked. And then you may have to go up to 5,000 I use. So that's the answer. That was a long answer.
No, but that's good. So, and it's usually serum, so it's a blood draw that someone would have. And then are
Yeah,
there at-home vitamin D tests, a fanny finger prick test that you
there
know of that
are.
could test?
They are. There's some at home. I don't want anybody pricking my finger. That makes me so upset. I'd rather, I don't like that. But yeah, there are at home tests that you can get. When you do go get your blood work drawn, do not allow them to draw your blood without getting your D checked because depending on your insurance, depending on your doctor, they may say, "Oh, you don't need that." You do. Because if I what I mentioned, it's critical to human health and all the vitamin D triggers all these things that happen in your cells and you want phenomenal cellular health, then you want to make sure that you know what that number is. So make sure you get it checked every year because if one year your vitamin D levels were optimal and then the next year they dropped, that's telling you something. Or they don't go up, that's telling you something. It's a benchmark. And it is easy and simple. So always make sure that they're getting your vitamin D levels checked if you have insurance. If you don't, you can get it at home and prick your finger and do it yourself if need
Yeah.
be.
I'm always amazed when women come to me with blood labs and I say, "Well, what is your D?" Like to me, there's
You're
some
like,
basic things. They do
they're
the
like, I don't know.
CBC, CMP, and
Hmm.
they're like, "But they didn't draw that." And I'm like, how
Yeah.
could that not be a part of a basic blood draw?
Interesting as it can be, I'm perplexed. It's which Debbie, which is why I'm so passionate about it because oh my, like I've had so many experiences personally and then with clients and customers over the years suffering, really suffering and being medicated. And it was their low vitamin D, tired, all these things, anxiety, all these things. And it was vitamin D. And
Yeah,
no one checked it.
it's crazy. Do you know Dr. Rangan Chatterjee? I think that's how you say his name, Rangan Chatterjee. He's
No.
a he's a in the UK, he's an MD,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and he got into this functional medicine space because he had a little boy that was sick, and he's of
Mm-hmm.
Indian descent, dark
Mm-hmm.
skin, and he's
Mm-hmm.
raised in the UK. I'm not sure if he's born in the UK, and their son was so sick, and he's a doctor, and they did all this
Yeah.
testing and test. I think it was a daughter, the son, not the daughter, but he has children. It was one of his kids, and they tested and tested and tested and poked and pricked and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
what they eventually found out was that vitamin D was a factor. And I remember studying yoga in India, same thing. They were talking about
Yeah.
that they learned that the kids that had lotions that were rubbed on them that had vitamin D or lanolin in them, those
Uh-huh.
kids didn't have certain sicknesses that the other kids had. So you're right. It is something that we overlook as
Overlook.
such an important aspect of health.
I my opinion, I'll just say this. My opinion, if we as a population, because so many of us are deficient or not having it in an optimal level, we could mitigate the need for so many pharmaceuticals and things that we take if we would look at that. And if a person's skin is darker, it makes it harder to produce it. And it just baffles me. And as you said, the doctor was, his son was sick, all, maybe going around in circles. It was a mystery, and vitamin D was related. My daughter just recently, who is I work with women in midlife and beyond, but my daughter is going to college, as I mentioned to you. And so I said, I need all of her blood labs run so we know where she is. And I said, are you guys going to run her vitamin D? And they're like, no, it's not necessary. I'm like, but it is necessary. It's very necessary. So they ran her vitamin D. Her levels were at a 19 now. And I learned something new every day. My daughter has some menstrual cramps and challenges. Lo and behold, with vitamin D, low vitamin D can be a factor in the pain and the discomfort when it comes to menstrual cycles. Vitamin D, that's what she was in there for. She was we went to the doctor to figure out about her cycle. No one mentioned it. They didn't even test it until I asked them to. And so now she was so low that we're getting her back up to par. But I was just not happy, right? That
It was
that
being
didn't even come up.
overlooked.
Yeah,
Right. Well,
overlooked.
the other thing is we can supplement too much with vitamin D, and I know there's been a lot of
Yeah.
talk out there. I interviewed a magnesium specialist on one of my
Mm-hmm.
podcasts. She's a ND, and
Mm-hmm.
she was explaining that high dosing of vitamin D. She's a magnesium specialist, so she was saying how women are overdosing with vitamin D, and it's affecting magnesium because it'll deplete
Mm-hmm.
magnesium. And
Mm-hmm.
so there is a sweet spot. And I
There
think
is.
that that's what's important to note. So, yeah, we're talking about something really important. And then
Mhm.
women might think, well, wait a minute, if I need vitamin D, let me take 5,000 IUs, let me take 10,000 IUs. But
Yeah,
no, there's too much of a good thing also. So you
there
can
is.
over supplement.
And when there's vitamin D, and I'll come back to that with the magnesium, but there is a vitamin D toxicity. When I've met people that not often, but they've taken too much and it just does their body not good. Taking 5,000 a day is generally fine, generally. Magnesium is important. I personally take magnesium and I take that at night for just relaxation and all the things that and there's a whole but and you spoke to the magnesium specials because there's like so many different magnesium forms, but you just I think you don't just want to go off taking things just willy-nilly per se.
Yeah, you need to be educated. So,
You
okay,
need to be
then
educated.
let's go to that. There are so many vitamin D supplement options available. So,
Yeah.
what should we look for when supplementing with vitamin D?
Okay, so I'll ask this first. A person looking, what do you care about? And so when I say, what do you care about? Because some people don't care about certifications and ethically produced. If you don't care about that, then you can just go on the shelf, grab any vitamin D on there. It doesn't matter. You don't care about any of that. Because some people just say, well, I'm going to go get it because it was the cheapest. And oftentimes, the cheapest is made with cheaper ingredients. If you are, uh, if you don't do pork, so if you're a person that doesn't eat pork, and that's an issue because there's people that, from a religious standpoint, they don't do that. The is gelatin is often made from pork. So you want to know if it's pork or if it's bovine, if you care about that. So when you go and you get your vitamin D, you want to first of all look and see if it has certifications, meaning that it's pure. What is on the label is in the bottle because supplements are not regulated at all. Anybody can put anything in a bottle and offer it, and we as a consumers, we're none the wiser. So the first thing I would say is look for certifications. If that company has reputable third party certifications that say what is in there is what is on the label. And then just be conscious that, sometimes price. Oh, I was looking at supplements all because I look at them, and then you might find soy and wheat and we're talking about the vitamin D, but you don't need soy and wheat in vitamin D. And some people have allergies to those. So you want to look at that in there. And then there's all kinds of additives. And all you want in your vitamin D
Is
is
vitamin D.
vitamin D, and then a carrier oil if it is just vitamin D by itself, and water. but you don't want any artificial colors. You don't want anything other than the vitamin D, or if it's D3K2. Um, oh, another thing. So like we have organic rice hull in our D3K2 as an excipient. And people are like, what? I don't know what that is. I don't care about it. But it helps it put it all together. But there's some that are made with magnesium stearate, which is, even though you hear the word magnesium, it's not as it's cheaper to use and it's not as good for the body. So we choose to use organic rice hull. So going back to what's the best thing to do is just look for a certification to know that the supplement you're taking actually is certified and they take that extra precaution. Because honest to goodness, Debbie, anybody could put anything in a bottle, anything, and put it on Amazon, and you're none the wiser. Honest to goodness, there's no regulations at all, at all. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so certification, and this is why you worked with clients for so long and went into sourcing and putting together products that
Yeah,
were the best that they could be for your clients. So, do you want to say a little bit about your supplements that you
yeah.
recommend that
Let me
you
just
have?
say a little bit about who I am as a person. I don't like gimmicks. I don't like hype and lies. And I think there's so much of that out there, and it gets really confusing. And I feel like the loudest voice. So if the company has the most money to market to consumers, um, then they get more, they're more popular. And so I started creating supplements, not for me, because I'm like, ah, these ingredients are crazy that are available. And I started to say, if I could create a supplement, this was 15 years ago, well, what would I have in it? And that's how I started with creating the supplements, because I just wanted to make sure that I had something that I believed in. Necessary Nutrition is not the only company that has quality supplements. There are other ones that are have very high integrity, but we started creating it because I know that I have high integrity, and those that are buying from us, they know that too. The other part too, when with Necessary Nutrition supplements, because I am a woman in midlife and going into menopause, with that purchase, we have a community. So it's not just, oh, I'm buying a vitamin D3K2. We actually have ongoing classes for our customers on topics specifically related to women in midlife. So, like for you, the magnesium expert, I'd actually love to connect with that person. We bring in experts to help answer the questions that our customers have. So we want to be not just a supplier of vitamin D, but a resource.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because it's
Yeah,
we're learning all the time. And even what you brought up about ingredients, because I read labels all the time. And
yeah,
there's a lot of things I know, but then it starts to get into the chemical names. You don't know them.
yeah.
So you're right. Magnesium, if I see magnesium stearate, it's like, oh, great, there's magnesium in here.
Magnesium, correct.
But if it's
Yeah,
not the right, and then I don't eat pork, I haven't had red meat
yeah,
since 1984 or
correct.
1986. So I
Yeah,
shy away from red meat and pork. And so,
correct.
yeah, I wouldn't want the casings or the,
Yeah,
so I wouldn't want that in my
yeah.
supplements. I
And
don't,
most
I
people
don't eat that.
wouldn't, they wouldn't know. They would
You
just say,
wouldn't
oh,
know. So yeah,
yeah,
you raise awareness on how important that is. And I always say, because I do find that sometimes people are looking for the cheapest and they'll go to Costco and buy these like huge fake things of
yes,
supplements.
yeah.
Sometimes calcium is a bunch of ground up rocks that they
Yeah.
use in these supplements instead of finding it from a different source. So it
I
really
tell
sourcing
you.
matters.
Yeah, it does. And it drives me bananas actually. Because I feel like I really do feel like this. I'm a small voice, but there's very loud voices, right? Big
Mhm.
companies, big, a lot of things. And what I love is podcasts like yours that open up the opportunity for people to learn authentically. That is like my lot in life. Um, I would tell you though, if I were selling cookies or something vape pens or something, I'd be a billionaire. I'm,
Yeah,
I'm a,
it's a big market, the supplements.
yeah, but it's
I
like I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. I love that you have ongoing education. That's really
Me
important,
too.
and that
Me
you,
too.
yeah,
Part
I think,
of what before when I used to work with clients one-on-one as a nutritionist, what I realized when I was working with my clients, I thought, gosh, I only know a small part of like where our bodies are so there's a lot going on. And I know fruits and vegetables and food, but maybe I don't know gut health or I don't know all these things. So I started partnering with others to bring them in. And I didn't want to step away from that part. So when I stopped working with clients that way, I just said, we're just going to make it free. Everybody that buys from Necessary Nutrition, they're going to get this, our complimentary membership to the Necessary Nutrition Academy. Everybody. We have, this is something else. This is kind of off the subject of vitamin D, but our next class is about tapping. I don't know if you're familiar with
yeah.
EFT tapping. I'm just learning about it. And dealing with women, we have sometimes emotional eating or anxiety and all these things. And
Hmm.
so I'm learning right alongside with everybody else. We have an expert coming in to talk about tapping, and all of our customers, if it's a topic that they want to hear, then they can come and learn. And we do that quarterly.
Well, that's
Um,
great because stress will deplete nutrients, and so
Debbie,
it's
oh my
yeah.
goodness. I'm going to say this is just the transparency about me. So I'm 48. And I would say that as I grow older, life seems a little bit more complicated. And I feel like I was better at coping with all of the things when I was younger. If I didn't eat well and have nutrition in my body to support me, I don't know who I would be right now. I think my saving grace is eating well and doing my best to manage stress. But stress it's a doozy. It tries to get the best of you.
Right. And the older we get, the longer we've been under stress, the more depletion there is.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, this has been really
Thank you.
informative, Robin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I learned a lot in today's talk, and I
Yes.
hope that those listening learned a lot as well.
Thank
So,
you.
where can ladies find more
I need.
information about your supplements and your academy for more information?
Yeah, so if you go to necessaryvitamind.com, necessaryvitamind.com, that's where you can find me and all of the information. And then on social media on Instagram, it is at Nessie Nutri, NESSYNUTRI, at Nessie Nutri. And yeah, and that's just when you're a customer, you will be invited to all of the classes. It's a perk, it's private, and that's my lot in life. I didn't mean for it to be my lot in life. When I went to college and got my master's degree, this wasn't on my radar. It was a shift, what,
It
almost
chose
18.
you. It chose
It
you.
did choose me.
Bone
And
health chose me. I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, it chooses us.
vitamin D chose me too, because as I was telling you, we produce protein powder, but a couple of years ago, I just woke up out of the just like I gotta tell people more about vitamin D because as I said before, it's not expensive, you all. Like it's so not expensive. And people have spent thousands of dollars going to doctors and so much frustration and stress and in so many cases their vitamin D levels are low. I'm like,
Right.
oh my goodness. Yeah. So, and maybe this is the thing. I'm not saying that vitamin D is the answer to all everybody's problems, but start there. Know that that's not one of the and one of the culprits to feeling tired or your hair is falling out. Even if your blood pressure's high, your blood sugar's high, go to that vitamin D and see where you are
Right.
first.
And for bone health, for osteopenia,
All of
osteoporosis,
that.
making sure. So,
Yes. And do yoga too.
yeah, of
Do
course, do yoga, pull and
do
push and stress your
yoga.
bones out every day. Ask for more so that they'll deliver more. Well,
I'm just
Robin,
starting to get to do yoga.
oh, well, you got
Yeah.
it. I don't know. Yoga's the answer, if you ask me. And I don't know how people live their lives without
I
it.
I'm like, life is because they say if you're under stress, there's just things to do, and it's always yoga. And I'm like, okay, yoga.
Yeah. All
Let's be
right. Well,
friends.
yeah, let's be friends.
Let's be
Robin,
friends.
thank you so much for
Thank
sharing your
you.
wisdom with us
Thank
today.
you.
And
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for listening to Stronger Bones Lifestyle Podcast. Bone loss is not an inevitable part of aging. We don't have to just wait for it to happen. There is so much that you can do. And that is what you will learn each week on the show. Go to my website, debbierobinson.com, if you want more information about what was shared in today's episode. At the bottom of this episode in the show notes, there will be links to whatever was shared. Please subscribe to this podcast. Share this podcast with your friends, your family, or any women that you think may be interested or benefit from the information we're sharing. Please rate the podcast. And if you have any questions you'd like asked or answered, I would love to hear from you. Let's do this, ladies. Let's change the way the world views osteoporosis and slow down, stop, or reverse our bone loss, take charge, and show other ladies what is possible. Thank you so much for joining me.